Lieutenant Han Bin Kim stood at the massive crystal gates of the Astran Royal Palace, checking his tablet for the 100th time. The blue-tinted documents clearly showed his diplomatic clearance, but something felt off. The palace was too quiet. Where were all the guards? Where were the usual crowds of officials rushing about? Access granted. A soft voice chimed as the crystal gates slid open silently. Han Bin walked through, his footsteps echoing in the empty entrance hall. The morning light of Astra Prime's twin suns filtered through the crystal walls, creating rainbow patterns on the polished floor. "Hello," he called out. His voice bounced back at him from the high ceiling. "This is Lieutenant Han Bin Kim from Earth's Diplomatic Corps. I'm here for my new assignment." No answer. Han Bin pulled at his collar. Earth's Diplomatic Corps uniform suddenly felt too tight. He had spent 3 years training for this position, learning about Astran culture and customs. He was supposed to be the youngest liaison officer ever assigned to the royal palace. Now, on his first day, something was clearly wrong. He checked his tablet again. The appointment was for 9 a.m. Astran Standard Time. He had triple-checked the conversion from Earth time. He had even arrived an hour early to make a good impression. The empty halls stretched before him like a maze of crystal and light. His footsteps made soft tapping sounds as he walked deeper into the palace. The walls seemed to pulse with a faint blue light, responding to his presence. Han Bin remembered reading that the palace was made of living crystal, grown over centuries by Astran architects. "Maybe I should wait outside," he muttered to himself. But as he turned to leave, a small cleaning robot whirred past his feet. It moved with purpose, following its programming. If the cleaning robots were active, the palace couldn't be completely closed. Han Bin decided to follow the robot. It led him through several corridors, each more beautiful than the last. The crystal walls grew more intricate, with patterns that seemed to tell ancient stories. He wished he had paid more attention to Astran art history in his training. The robot turned a corner and disappeared through a small door. Han Bin found himself in what looked like a garden, but unlike any garden he had seen on Earth. Crystal trees grew from the floor, their branches ending in glowing fruits that changed colors slowly. The air smelled sweet, like honey and morning dew. He checked his communicator, hoping to reach someone at Earth's embassy. No signal. The crystal walls must have been blocking it. "I should definitely go back," he said aloud. But curiosity pulled at him. This was exactly the kind of place he had dreamed of seeing when he joined the diplomatic corps. How many humans had ever walked these halls? A soft humming sound caught his attention. It came from somewhere deeper in the garden. Music? Maybe he had finally found someone who could help him. Han Bin followed the sound, careful not to touch any of the crystal plants. Some of them moved slightly as he passed, as if watching him. The humming grew louder, and now he could see a bright light ahead, like sunshine through water. He rounded a final corner, and his training completely failed him. Nothing in his 3 years of diplomatic studies had prepared him for what he saw. The garden opened into a large circular room. In the center, floating in a beam of light, was an Astran. Her skin glowed with shifting patterns of blue and silver, a trait unique to Astran royalty. She was performing what he would later learn was a sacred bioluminescent cleansing ritual, completely natural and normal in Astran culture. But Han Bin's human brain could only process one thing. The alien princess was not wearing any clothes. He froze. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Every diplomatic protocol he had memorized vanished from his mind. The princess turned, still floating in the light beam. Her eyes, silver like moonlight on water, went wide with surprise. Then she did something completely unexpected. She smiled. "Oh, you must be the new human diplomat," she said in perfect English. "You're about 12 hours early. We really should work on coordinating our time zones better." Han Bin Kim, youngest diplomatic liaison officer in Earth's history, did the only thing his shocked brain could think of. He covered his eyes with both hands, spun around, and walked straight into a crystal tree. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was the princess's musical laughter and her voice saying, "Someone should have mentioned humans are so adorably modest." Han Bin woke up to voices speaking softly around him. His head hurt where it had hit the crystal tree. He kept his eyes tightly shut, hoping this was all just a bad dream. "Is the human all right?" That was the princess's voice. He hit the tree quite hard. "Yes, Your Highness," another voice answered. "Just a small bump." Though I'm curious why he chose to walk into a tree in the first place. Han Bin felt something cool touch his forehead. He opened his eyes slowly and found himself lying on a soft floating platform. Two Astrans stood over him. The princess, now wearing shimmering robes that seemed made of starlight, and a worried-looking palace doctor. "Ah, he's awake," the princess said cheerfully. "I'm Princess Yuni. Welcome to the Crystalline Palace, Lieutenant Kim. Though I must say, this is not how we usually start diplomatic relations." Han Bin tried to sit up, but the room spun a little. "Your Highness, I am so sorry. There was a mistake with the time. I didn't mean to. I didn't know. I should have." "Breathe," the doctor said kindly. "I'm Dr. Suji. You have a minor concussion from your encounter with our crystal tree. The tree is fine. By the way, it's actually quite amused." Han Bin blinked. "The tree is amused?" "Of course, Princess Yoon," he said. "All our crystal plants are semi-conscious. That particular tree hasn't had this much excitement in centuries." She paused, then added with a small smile, "Though I must admit, neither have I. No one has ever fainted at the sight of me before." Han Bin's face turned red. "Your Highness, on Earth, we have very different customs about, clothing." "Yes, I've been reading about that while you were unconscious," Princess Yoon, he said, holding up a data pad. "Humans are very interesting. You wear clothes all the time, even when performing cleansing rituals. How do you activate your natural bioluminescence?" "We don't have natural bioluminescence," Han Bin explained carefully. Princess Yoon, his eyes widened. "None at all. How do you communicate your emotional states, or perform energy transfers, or—" "Your Highness," Dr. Sujoy interrupted gently. "Perhaps we should let Lieutenant Kim rest before the cultural exchange begins." But the princess was too curious to stop. She pulled up a chair next to Han Bin's floating bed. "Tell me everything about human customs. Why do you cover yourselves? What happens if someone sees you uncovered? Why did you think walking into a tree was a good solution?" Despite his embarrassment, Han Bin found himself smiling. The princess's enthusiasm was infectious. "Well, on Earth, nudity is considered very private. When we accidentally see someone without clothes, the polite thing to do is look away immediately." "Fascinating." Princess Yoon, he leaned forward. "And the tree collision? That wasn't actually part of our customs. I just panicked." The princess laughed, and the sound made the crystal walls chime in harmony. "Oh, this is wonderful. When Mother said we needed to improve our understanding of humans, I don't think this is what she had in mind. But it's perfect." "Perfect?" Han Bin asked nervously. "Of course. We've just discovered a huge cultural difference that nobody thought to mention in any diplomatic briefing. Think about it. We Astrans use our bioluminescent forms for formal ceremonies, but humans would find that horrifying. We need to update all our protocols." Just then, a palace guard rushed in. "Your Highness, we just received word that the human diplomat is arriving 12 hours early, and—" He stopped, looking at the scene before him. "You're a bit late with that warning," Dr. Suji said dryly. Princess Yoon, he stood up, her robes shimming like galaxies. "Please inform the Royal Council that I'll be leading an emergency meeting on human customs, and get me all our diplomatic protocols. They need serious revision." She turned to Han Bin. "Lieutenant Kim, once Dr. Suji clears you, would you help me prevent any future diplomatic tree collisions?" Han Bin looked at her eager face and realized that despite the disastrous start, this might turn out to be an interesting assignment after all. It would be my honor, Your Highness, though maybe we could start with simpler topics than bioluminescent customs. Agreed, Princess Yun, he said with a grin. Let's begin with why humans turn such a fascinating shade of red when embarrassed. Your face is doing it again right now. Han Bin groaned and wondered if it was too late to request a transfer to a nice, simple desk job back on Earth. But somehow, he didn't think the princess would let him escape that easily. The royal council chamber was filled with whispers and glowing faces. 12 Astran council members sat around a crystal table, their skin shimmering with different colors that showed their emotions. Han Bin tried not to think about how he had learned about Astran emotional displays in the most awkward way possible. Let me understand this correctly, said Council Elder Ta Wan, his skin pulsing with orange lights that Han Bin guessed meant confusion. The human walked in during Princess Yun He's morning luminescence ritual because of a time zone error. Yes, Elder, Han Bin said, keeping his eyes firmly fixed on the elder's face. On Earth, we use different time systems. I made a mistake in the conversion. Princess Yun, he stood next to him, her skin glowing with calm blue patterns. But we've discovered something important. Our diplomatic guides say nothing about human modesty customs. This could have caused problems during formal ceremonies. Problems? Asked another council member, Lady Kira. What problems? Han Bin cleared his throat. Well, for example, your traditional greeting ceremony involves full bioluminescent display. On Earth, that would be uncomfortable for human visitors. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. Han Bin saw patterns of orange, green, and purple lighting up around the room like a galaxy of embarrassed stars. But how do humans show proper respect without revealing their light patterns? Asked Elder Ta Wan. We bow, shake hands, or use words, Han Bin explained. We keep our bodies covered with clothes. All the time. Lady Kira looked shocked. Even during energy absorption. We don't do energy absorption, Han Bin said. We eat food and get energy from that. More shocked whispers filled the room. Princess Yun, he stepped forward, her blue glow brightening with excitement. This is exactly why we need to update our diplomatic protocols, she said. Lieutenant Kim has already taught me so much. Did you know humans can't change their skin color to show emotions? They do something called blushing instead. As if on cue, Han Bin felt his face getting warm. Several council members leaned forward to study his reddening cheeks with fascination. Remarkable, said Lady Kira. The blood vessels in their face dilate to show embarrassment. How inefficient but charming. Can all humans do this? Asked a younger council member. We don't do it on purpose, Han Bin mumbled, wishing he could control this blushing. Princess Yun, he came to his rescue. We should focus on preventing future misunderstandings. I propose creating new guidelines for human-Astran interactions. Agreed, said Elder Ta Wan. Lieutenant Kim, would you help the princess with this task? Before Han Bin could answer, the chamber doors burst open. Captain Min Ho of the Royal Guard rushed in, his skin flashing alarming patterns of red. Your Highness, council members, he said. The palace security system recorded everything that happened in the meditation garden. Someone leaked the video to the public networks. Han Bin felt his heart stop. Princess Yun He's glow dimmed slightly. How bad is it? She asked. It's already reaching Earth networks, Captain Min Ho reported. They're calling it the first contact fumble, and he paused, his red patterns shifting to confused purple. And what? Elder Ta Wan demanded. And both humans and Astrans find it hilarious. The captain finished. It's being called the best example of cultural misunderstanding since the Great Handshake incident with the blob people of Sigma 9. Han Bin put his face in his hands. I'm going to lose my job. Nonsense. Princess Yun, he said cheerfully. This is perfect. Now everyone will understand why we need better cultural exchange programs. We can use this attention to build stronger ties between our peoples. The princess is right, Lady Kira said, her glow turning a thoughtful green. Though perhaps we should start with basics, like explaining why humans wear those fabric coverings all the time. They're called clothes, Hanbin said weakly. Fascinating. Several council members said at once, their skin patterns synchronizing in shows of interest. Princess Yoon, he put a comforting hand on Hanbin's shoulder. Don't worry, Lieutenant. By the time we're done, this will be remembered as the start of a great friendship between our species. Though maybe we should begin with a lesson on Earth time zones. Hanbin looked at her encouraging smile and the curious faces of the council members. Maybe she was right. Maybe this disaster could turn into something good. But first, he really needed to learn how to stop blushing. Queen Jie's throne room was the most beautiful place Hanbin had ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that changed colors with the queen's mood. Right now, they glowed with a deep purple that made Hanbin nervous. So, the queen said, looking down at him from her crystal throne, "You are the human who has caused such excitement in my palace." Her skin shimmered with patterns that Hanbin couldn't read. "Yes, Your Majesty." Hanbin bowed deeply. "I apologize for the confusion I caused." Princess Yoon, he stood beside him, her own glow steady and calm. "Mother, Lieutenant Kim has helped us discover important things about human culture. Did you know they don't even teach their children about bioluminescent communication? Because we don't have any," Hanbin whispered. "Fascinating," Queen Ga said, leaning forward. "Tell me, Lieutenant, how do human mothers show love to their children without sharing light patterns?" "We use words, hugs, and facial expressions, Your Majesty," Hanbin explained. "We can smile, laugh, or cry to show feelings." "Cry." The queen's color patterns shifted to curious blue. "Ah yes, the water from eyes. We learned about this in old reports, but you can't change your skin color at will. Only when we blush, Your Majesty, and we can't control that." "He's doing it now." "Princess Yoon," he said excitedly. "See how his face turns red. Humans call it embarrassment." The queen studied Hanbin's face with interest. "Remarkable. And this video that's causing such a stir, you were following human customs when you tried to escape through a tree." "Not exactly, Your Majesty," Hanbin admitted. "That was just panic." Unexpectedly, Queen Ga laughed. The sound made the crystal walls sing with joy. "You humans are delightful. No wonder my daughter finds you so interesting." Just then, Palace Aide Du Yum hurried into the throne room. His skin flashed worried patterns of green and yellow. "Your Majesty, Your Highness, the Earth Ambassador is calling. They want to discuss the incident." Hanbin felt his heart sink. This was it. He was going to be sent back to Earth in disgrace. "But Princess Yoon," he stepped forward. "Mother, please let me handle this. I have an idea." Queen Ga studied her daughter carefully. "What are you planning?" "The video has already made people on both worlds laugh. Why not use this chance to start a real cultural exchange? Lieutenant Kim can teach us about humans, and we can teach him about Astrans." "And what about the diplomatic problems this might cause?" the Queen asked. "Problems?" Princess Yoon, his glow brightened with confidence. "This is the most people have ever talked about human-Astran relations. Even the crystal trees are gossiping about it." "The trees gossip?" Hanbin asked, distracted. "Of course they do," Du Young said. "They have nothing better to do. They're trees." Queen Ga raised her hand for silence. Her skin patterns shifted through several colors as she thought. Finally, she spoke. Lieutenant Kim approached the throne. Hanbin walked forward on shaky legs. The queen's glow had turned to a color he hadn't seen before. "You came to our world to build bridges between our peoples," she said. "Though your method was unusual, you have certainly got everyone's attention. Would you be willing to work with my daughter on creating new diplomatic protocols that respect both our cultures? Han Bin bowed again. It would be my honor, Your Majesty. Though perhaps we could start with fixing the time zone conversion charts. The Queen's laugh rang out again. Yes, that might be wise. Du Young, please tell the Earth Ambassador that Lieutenant Kim is now officially assigned to the Cultural Understanding Initiative, under my daughter's supervision. And tell them we'll need their help updating all the diplomatic guides. Princess Yunhee added. Did you know humans wear clothes even when swimming? Even when swimming? Du Young asked, shocked. Can we please focus on the time zones first? Han Bin begged. Queen Jie's skin sparkled with amusement. I haven't been this entertained since the Blob people tried to shake hands with a hologram. Princess Yunhee, please try not to scandalize our human friend too much. Lieutenant Kim, please try not to walk into any more trees. As they left the throne room, Han Bin heard the crystal walls humming with what sounded like laughter. He was starting to think the entire palace was enjoying his discomfort. Don't worry, Princess Yunhee whispered. The trees promised not to tell anyone about the high-pitched squeak you made when you fainted. Han Bin groaned. It was going to be a very long assignment. A week had passed since the first contact fumble, and Han Bin sat in his new office in the crystalline palace. The walls were normal crystal, not the living kind that liked to gossip. Princess Yunhee had chosen this room specially for him, knowing he still got nervous when the walls changed colors to show their feelings. Lieutenant Kim, Palace Aide Du Young called from the doorway. The princess is ready for today's cultural exchange meeting. Han Bin looked up from his tablet where he was reviewing Earth customs. Did she promise to wear the formal robes this time? Yes, though she still doesn't understand why, Du Young said with a small smile. His skin glowed with gentle amusement. She says wearing layers of cloth feels like being wrapped in a cocoon. Better than another incident, Han Bin muttered, following Du Young down the crystal hallways. They entered a large meeting room where Princess Yunhee waited with a group of young Astran nobles. True to her word, she wore the shimmering formal robes that covered her completely. Her skin still glowed through the special fabric, but in a way that wouldn't shock human visitors. Han Bin, she called out cheerfully. Today we're learning about human greetings. No bioluminescent displays, I promise. The young nobles looked disappointed. One of them, Lady Sun Mei, raised her hand. But how will we show proper respect without the traditional light dance of welcome? That's what we're here to learn, Han Bin said, walking to the front of the room. Humans use different gestures. The most common is the handshake. He demonstrated with Du Young, who had learned it last week after 3 failed attempts and 1 accidental finger wrestling match. You just touch hands, Lady Sun Mei asked, without sharing energy patterns. Humans don't share energy that way, Princess Yunhee explained proudly, showing off her new knowledge. They get their energy from something called food instead. Actually, Han Bin said, I brought some earth snacks to demonstrate. He opened a box he'd been saving for this lesson. These are cookies. The Astrans crowded around, their skin patterns showing swirls of curiosity. Princess Yunhee picked up a chocolate chip cookie and studied it. You absorb energy from this brown spotted disc, she asked. You eat it, Han Bin explained. Like this. He took a bite of a cookie. The Astrans gasped. Their skin flashed with surprise patterns. You put it inside your body, Lord Junseo asked, fascinated and horrified. That's how humans process food for energy, Han Bin explained patiently. It's completely normal for us. Princess Yunhee, always the bravest, took a small bite of her cookie. Her eyes widened, and her skin burst into patterns of bright joy. This is amazing, she exclaimed. The energy transfer is so tasty. Everyone must try this. Soon the room was full of Astrans experiencing cookies for the first time. Their skin colors changed rapidly with each bite, creating a light show that made the crystal walls pulse in response. I can see why humans don't need bioluminescence, Lady Sunmai said, reaching for another cookie. They have these instead. Han Bin watched in amusement as the formal cultural lesson turned into an impromptu cookie party. Du Young was carefully wrapping a cookie in a napkin, probably to study later. Han Bin, Princess Yum, he said, moving to stand beside him. I think we're making progress. Look how happy everyone is to learn about Earth customs. True, he agreed. Though I'm not sure cookies were supposed to be the main lesson today. Sometimes the best diplomatic bridges are built by accident, she said wisely. Then her formal robe slipped slightly, revealing a flash of glowing skin. Han Bin quickly looked away. Still so modest, she teased, fixing her robe. Don't worry, I'm learning. Though I still think human clothes are silly, I'll wear them for the sake of diplomacy. Thank you, Your Highness. Yoonhee, she corrected. We're friends now, aren't we? You've shared your sacred earth cookies with us. That must mean something. Han Bin looked at the room full of happy Astrans, enjoying their first taste of earth culture, quite literally. Maybe she was right. Maybe sometimes the best way to understand each other was through simple things, like cookies and friendship. Just wait until I introduce you to pizza, he said with a smile. Princess Yoonhee's skin glowed with excitement. Is that another energy disk? Something like that, Han Bin laughed. But maybe we should master proper handshakes first. Agreed, she said, then attempted a handshake that somehow turned into a high five. Oh, was that wrong? Human greetings are so complicated. Han Bin just smiled. One step at a time, they were building bridges between their worlds, even if those bridges were currently made of cookies and confused high fives. Captain Minho walked quickly through the crystal corridors of the palace, his skin glowing with worried red patterns. The guards he passed straightened up nervously. Their captain never showed red patterns unless something was very wrong. He found Han Bin and Princess Yoonhee in the garden, teaching a group of crystal trees about earth plants. The trees were swaying with interest, their branches making soft chiming sounds. Your Highness, Minho said, bowing quickly. Lieutenant Kim, we have a problem. Princess Yoonhee's glow dimmed slightly. What's wrong, Captain? There's a group of traditionalists gathering outside the palace. They're protesting against the cultural exchange program. They say we're becoming too human. Han Bin felt his heart sink. He had worried something like this might happen. How many protesters? About 200, Minho said. And they're all showing deep purple rage patterns. Some are even trying to communicate with the palace crystals, telling them to reject human presence. The nearest crystal tree chimed angrily at this news. It had grown quite fond of Han Bin's stories about earth forests. We should cancel today's public meeting, Minho continued. It's not safe. No, Princess Yoonhee said firmly. That's exactly what they want. We can't let fear stop our progress. Her skin glowed with determination. Han Bin looked at her worriedly. Your Highness, Yoonhee, maybe the captain is right. We could postpone. Did you postpone teaching us about cookies when the council members doubted you? She asked. Did you give up when the video of our first meeting went public? That was different, Han Bin protested. Nobody was angry then. They just thought it was funny. Lieutenant Kim is right, Minho said. The protesters are being led by Elder Kang. He's been speaking against humans since the first contact 50 years ago. Just then, Du Young rushed in, his skin flashing urgent patterns. Your Highness, they're saying things about you on the public channels. Elder Kang is telling everyone that you're betraying Astran traditions by wearing human clothes and eating human food. Princess Yoonhee's glow turned a fierce gold color that Han Bin had never seen before. Is that what they think? That learning about humans makes us less Astran? She walked to the nearest crystal wall and pressed her hand against it. The crystal responded to her touch, spreading her golden glow throughout the palace. What are you doing? Han Bin asked. Showing them something, she said. Her voice was calm, but her light was intense. The crystal walls can broadcast to the public screens. Elder Kang wants to talk about tradition. Let's talk. The wall in front of them turned into a giant screen, showing the crowd outside. Elder Kang stood at the front, his skin glowing angry purple as he spoke to his followers. Princess Yoonhee's image appeared on all the public screens around the plaza. The protesters fell silent, surprised by her sudden appearance. Elder Kang, she said clearly, you say we're betraying our traditions by learning about humans. But what is our oldest tradition? The elder's purple glow flickered. The sharing of light, Your Highness. The pure communication of Astran souls. Exactly, she said. We share light to understand each other, to learn, to grow. How is learning about humans any different? She gestured to Hanbin to stand beside her. Look at Lieutenant Kim. He doesn't have our light, but he tries to understand it. He respects our ways while teaching us his. Isn't that what sharing light is all about? Understanding those who are different. The crowd's angry purple glow began to fade. Some were showing curious blue patterns. But the human ways are strange. Elder Kang protested. They cover their light. They have no light to cover, Princess Yoonhee said. But they have other gifts. Elder, did you know they can create sweet energy discs called cookies? A surprised murmur went through the crowd. Several of the nobles who had attended Hanbin's lesson spoke up, their skin glowing with happy memories of the cookies. Hanbin watched in amazement as Princess Yoon. He turned a dangerous protest into a discussion about earth food. Even Elder Kang's purple glow was fading, replaced by reluctant curiosity. Sometimes, Du Young whispered to Hanbin, the best way to fight anger is with cookies. The crystal tree next to them chimed in agreement. Then it tried to explain the concept of cookies to its fellow trees, creating a symphony of confused but interested chimes. Captain Minho shook his head, his worried red patterns changing to relief blue. Crisis solved with cookie diplomacy. This will make an interesting report. Hanbin smiled. Maybe there was hope for human-Astran relations after all, though he was starting to think he should have brought more cookies. Hanbin sat in the palace's communication room, staring at the screen with his mouth open. Beside him, Princess Yoonhee's skin was glowing with what he had learned was her trying not to laugh pattern. 10 million views, he said weakly. The video of our incident has 10 million views. 12 million now, Du Young corrected, checking his datapad. It's the most popular video on both Earth and Astran networks. They're calling it the greatest cultural misunderstanding in galaxy history. The screen showed clips from news channels across 2 worlds. Humans and Astrans were all talking about the video, but not in the way Hanbin had feared. Look at how carefully he covers his eyes, an Earth news host said, laughing. That's diplomatic training at its finest. The human's reaction to natural bioluminescence is fascinating, an Astran scientist commented, her skin glowing with academic interest. Notice how his face changes color when embarrassed. Princess Yoon, he pointed at another clip. Oh, this is my favorite part. When you walked into the tree's confusion patterns were perfect. The tree did have excellent comic timing. Du Young agreed. Hanbin put his head in his hands. I'm never going to live this down, am I? Actually, said a new voice, you might be helping more than you know. They turned to see Queen Jie entering the room. Everyone bowed quickly, while the crystal walls hummed a greeting to their queen. Mother, Princess Yoonhee said, have you seen the new reactions? Indeed, the queen said, her skin showing amused patterns. The Earth ambassador just called. It seems your little accident has done more for human-Astran relations than 50 years of formal diplomacy. How? Hanbin asked, confused. Because it's real, Du Young said suddenly. His skin glowed with understanding. All those formal meetings and careful diplomatic words, they never showed how our peoples really interact. But this, he gestured at the screen. This shows both humans and Astrans can laugh at the same misunderstandings. The screen changed to show a group of human students trying to learn Astran greeting customs. They were wearing glowing stick lights and trying to make patterns, failing hilariously but having fun. Another clip showed Astran children wearing human-style clothes and pretending to be embarrassed by everything. Their skin glowed with joy as they played at being humans. People are curious now, Princess Yoon-hee said. They want to learn about each other, all because you were bad at time zones, Han-bin. Thanks for reminding me, he muttered. Queen Jie's skin sparkled with royal amusement. The Earth ambassador suggested we use this interest. They want to start a proper cultural exchange program, not just diplomats, but students, artists, and ordinary citizens. Really? Princess Yoon-hee's glow brightened with excitement. Can I help organize it? That's why I'm here, the Queen said. The ambassador specifically requested that you and Lieutenant Kim lead the program. They said something about your unique perspective on cultural differences. Han-bin looked up hopefully. So, I'm not being fired. Everyone's skin flashed with, of course, knot patterns, which the crystal walls echoed cheerfully. Fired. Princess Yoon-hee laughed. You're famous. Children on both worlds are playing embarrassed human and glowing Astran in their schoolyards. There are memes. There are what? Han-bin asked, scared to know the answer. Do-young showed him his datapad. Look, they're making jokes about your tree collision in 6 different languages. And someone wrote a song about it. The crystal wall suddenly played a few notes of what was apparently the Ballad of the Blushing Diplomat. Han-bin groaned while everyone else, including the Queen, tried not to laugh. Well, Princess Yoon, he said brightly, at least the trees have forgiven you. That one you hit actually brags about it now. Says it helped start a cultural revolution. Great, Han-bin said. I'm glad the tree is enjoying its fame. Queen Jie's skin showed gentle understanding patterns. Sometimes, Lieutenant Kim, the most important diplomatic moments come from honest mistakes. Your incident showed both our peoples that it's okay to be confused, to laugh, and to learn from each other. Han-bin looked at the screen, where humans and Astrans were continuing to share their reactions to his embarrassing moment. They weren't mocking or angry. They were connecting, sharing, and understanding each other better through shared laughter. Besides, Princess Yoon, he added with a mischievous glow, wait until they see what happens when we introduce humans to our traditional dancing. Han-bin's face turned red again. He really needed to learn how to control that. The grand celebration hall of the crystalline palace sparkled with the light of 1,000 glowing Astrans. It was the first official human Astran cultural festival, and both species had come together to share their customs. Humans wore special light-reflecting clothes to join in Astran light dances, while Astrans tried their best to eat earth food without glowing too brightly with excitement. Han-bin stood near the crystal punch bowl, watching Princess Yoon-hee teach a group of human children how to make simple light patterns using small glowing bands on their arms. Her skin glowed with joy as the children laughed and waved their arms, creating wobbly but enthusiastic patterns. Who would have thought, Captain Minho said, appearing beside Han-bin, that your tree collision would lead to this? Please stop bringing that up, Han-bin sighed. But he was smiling. The festival was a huge success. Even Elder Kang was there, his skin showing curious patterns as he carefully tried something called ice cream. Suddenly, Han-bin noticed something odd. A shadow moved behind one of the crystal columns where no shadow should be. His diplomatic training had included security awareness, and something felt wrong. He started walking toward the column, trying to look casual. Captain Minho must have noticed too, because his skin shifted to alert patterns. Your Highness, Han-bin called out to Princess Yoon-hee, keeping his voice calm. Could you show me that new light pattern again? The princess looked up, confused for a moment. Then she saw his serious expression and understood something was wrong. She had learned to read human faces well. Of course, she said brightly, moving away from her spot near the column. The children followed her, still practicing their light patterns. Just in time, a dark figure leaped out from behind the column, holding a strange device. Han Bin recognized it from his security briefings, a light suppressor designed to forcefully dim an Astran's natural glow. In the wrong hands, it could be very dangerous. Without thinking, Han Bin did what he had become very good at. He got in the way at exactly the right moment. He jumped between the attacker and the princess, but this time it wasn't an accident. The light suppressor hit him instead of Princess Yuni. Nothing happened, of course. Humans don't have bioluminescence to suppress. That doesn't work on humans, Han Bin said to the surprised attacker. We're naturally non-glowing, remember? Captain Minho's guards surrounded the attacker instantly. The crystal walls flashed warning patterns, and the celebration guests moved back in shock. The attacker's hood fell back, revealing an Astran with deep purple rage patterns, one of Elder Kang's most extreme followers. You're ruining our pure culture, the attacker shouted. Humans don't belong here. Their darkness will spread. Princess Yun. He stepped forward, her skin glowing with calm authority. Look around you, she said. Do you see darkness spreading? I see human children learning our light patterns. I see our people enjoying human customs. I see understanding growing. The attacker's purple patterns flickered uncertainly. Elder King himself walked over, his skin showing complex patterns of shame and disappointment. I was wrong about humans, he said quietly. Their different ways don't diminish our light. They help us shine in new ways. He turned to the attacker. Look at how the human protected the princess. No light patterns, no energy sharing, just simple courage. Perhaps we have things to learn from their darkness. The guards led the attacker away. Han Bin suddenly realized his legs were shaking. Princess Yuni touched his arm gently, sharing a small glow of comfort. Thank you, she said. Though I'm surprised you didn't walk into anything this time. Han Bin laughed weakly. I'm getting better at this whole diplomacy thing. The crystal walls hummed with approval, and the celebration slowly returned to normal. The human children went back to practicing their light patterns, now with even more enthusiasm. You know what this means? Princess Yuni said, her glow turning mischievous. What? Now you're going to be famous for something else. The human who blocked a light suppressor. Much better than the human who fought a tree. Han Bin groaned as the crystal walls chimed with laughter. Even in serious moments, she couldn't help teasing him. But looking around at humans and Astrans mingling, sharing, and learning from each other, he didn't mind. Sometimes the best way to bring light to darkness was to simply be yourself, even if that meant occasionally walking into trees or jumping in front of strange weapons. Just promise me one thing, he said to the princess. What's that? Don't let them write another song about this one. 1 year after the first contact fumble, Han Bin stood in the newly built Human Astran Cultural Center. The building was a beautiful mix of Earth architecture and Astran crystal engineering. Stop fidgeting with your tie, Princess Yum, he said, coming to stand beside him. She wore a fascinating combination of traditional Astran robes and a human-style diplomatic suit. I can't help it, Han Bin replied. The Earth Ambassador and half the Royal Council are coming to the opening ceremony. And you faced worse, she reminded him. Or have you forgotten about the tree incident? You're never going to let me forget that, are you? Never, she grinned, her glow sparkling with amusement. The trees certainly haven't. Look. She pointed to the crystal garden, where several trees had grown into a pattern that looked suspiciously like a human walking into their branches. Very funny, he said to the trees. They had developed quite a sense of humor over the past year. Do Young hurried over, his skin showing organized, busy patterns. Everything's ready. The guests are arriving. The earth food is prepared. And the crystal walls have promised to keep their comments to themselves during the ceremony. The walls hummed in what sounded like disappointed agreement. They had also developed a sense of humor, mostly at Hanbin's expense. People began filling the main hall. Humans and Astrans mixed easily now, humans wearing light-enhancing clothes that could create simple patterns, Astrans wearing comfortable Earth-style clothing that worked well with their natural glow. Queen Ga arrived with the Earth Ambassador. To everyone's surprise, Elder Kang accompanied them. His skin showed calm, accepting patterns that would have been impossible a year ago. Lieutenant Kim, the Earth Ambassador, called out. Or should I say, Cultural Exchange Director Kim. Han Bin bowed. Either is fine, Ambassador. Welcome to our new center. Remarkable place, Elder Kang said, looking around. It feels both human and Astran, yet somehow more than both. Princess Yoon, he stepped forward to begin the ceremony. Her glow was bright and confident as she addressed the crowd. A year ago, she said, a human diplomat walked into a tree in our palace. She paused as everyone chuckled, their skin patterns showing shared amusement. That could have been just an embarrassing incident. Instead, it became the start of something wonderful. She gestured to the hall around them. Look at us now. Human children learn our light dances. Astran youth wear earth clothes and eat ice cream. Our crystal trees trade stories with visitors about earth forests. Even our mistakes have brought us closer. Han Bin watched as humans and Astrans nodded in agreement. He saw human parents helping their children adjust their light bands to match Astran patterns. He saw Astran elders carefully eating earth candies while their skin glowed with delight. And so, Princess Yoon, he continued, I'm proud to announce the next step in our friendship. The Human Astran Exchange Program will now accept students from both worlds. Humans will study here on Astra Prime, while young Astrans will attend Earth universities. The crowd burst into excited chatter. The crystal walls hummed with joy, and even the trees swayed happily. Of course, she added with a mischievous glow, all students will receive proper time zone training. We don't want any more tree incidents. Everyone laughed. Han Bin felt his face turning red, but he didn't mind anymore. His embarrassing mistake had helped build this bridge between worlds. Queen Ga stepped forward, her skin glowing with royal pride. To mark this occasion, we have renamed the palace garden where this all began. It is now the Garden of New Understanding, and the famous tree has been appointed as its official guardian. The trees in the new center chimed excitedly at this news. Han Bin was pretty sure they were already spreading gossip through their crystal network. Later, as humans and Astrans celebrated together, Princess Yoon, he found Han Bin watching the happy crowd. Thinking deep thoughts, she asked. Just wondering, he said, what would have happened if I had gotten the time zone right that day? She laughed, her glow brightening. Then we would have had to find another way to teach you about Astran customs, though probably with fewer trees involved. Han Bin smiled. Sometimes the biggest changes started with the smallest mistakes, and sometimes walking into a tree could lead you exactly where you needed to be. By the way, Princess Yoon, he added casually, the trees want to know if you'll help them recreate the famous incident for the students. For educational purposes, of course. Absolutely not. But the trees were already chiming a familiar tune, the Ballad of the Blushing Diplomat. And Han Bin knew this story would be told for generations to come.